Hi everyone, welcome to second day of FOSS Hack. So today we have Anand. So he has been crafting beautiful software since last 2 decades. So he'll be talking about the path to mastery. So I'll just give the ask Anand to start the presentation. Thank you Anand for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Vishal. Hello, everyone. Hope you had a nice hackathon so far. I'm going to talk today about the path to mastery. Before I get started, let me introduce myself a bit. I've been crafting software since almost 2 decades. Over the years, I've worked on some interesting projects, worked with amazing people and some wonderful organizations. I started programming when internet was not a known commodity. Even getting access to computer was hard. I struggled my way through. Fortunately, I've never formally trained in computer science. I say it's a good thing because everything I learned for the joy of doing it. There was no external motivation. In that sense, I learned everything when I was ready to learn them and when I had real passion for doing that. So in that sense, I saw computer programming as a craft, saw the beauty in actually doing it. I found joy in doing programming. That's how I learned. I'm sure many of you think in the same way. Today, I'm going to share some insights from my journey. I hope some of it might help you in your own path to mastery. This talk is not really about how do you get a better job or how to contribute to FOSS or how to become famous or etc. etc. Right? It's only about the craft of programming. How do you get better at that? That's what I care deeply about, and that's what I'm going to talk about it through some of my experiences. As you've noticed, like I've been working from almost 2 decades, so that means like many of you might even be younger than my programming life. So some of these things might actually look arcane to you because you may not imagine how the world was before the internet, etc. So in a sense, this talk is also going to be a gentle walk through history of computing. So let me get started. So before I start, let me kind of say what mastery is once again. So when you look at mastery, the dictionary definition, it says like it's comprehensive knowledge or a skill. Think about any craftsman, right? So they start with doing some stuff and they get better at it. So now, how do you get that in computer programming, building software? So that's what we're going to look at today. So step one, step zero rather, you need to take the first step. That the path to mastery starts by taking the first step. It may sound silly, but many of us find it hard to make our minds even do that. Okay, I'm sure like all of you are fortunate. That probably means you already made your mind. But a lot of times we don't feel confident, right? You want to learn programming, but we're not sure if we can do it. We're not confident that overwhelmed by everyone else is doing. So many programming languages, so many buzzwords, ever-changing world. You're kind of completely lost in that, right? So you may have your friends who are already doing Google Summer of Code, but you're not confident you can even program well. So we all go through this kind of reservations at some point in time. Let me remind you that it's still fine. Everyone can get better at it if they're willing to. Okay. So I'm going to tell a story of my own encounter with computers for the first time. And I'm sure you'll feel that you're much better position to start than where I started. Okay. It was sometime in 1996. I went for counseling for engineering admissions. I was standing outside the building with many others like me, and there was a talk that the counseling was postponed. You know what? Due to a computer virus. What? A virus in computer? I was scared. I thought it's a virus that attacks people using computers. It may sound silly. You may laugh at me, but that's how I felt it at that point. Okay, because I've never looked at computers before. That was my first encounter to computers. After a year, we had Pascal programming in our course. I bought a book and asked a friend who was in computer science to tell me how to program this on computer. I still remember what he told me. go to computer center, turn on the computer, enter cd tp5, enter your program, press F5 to run the program. You see any errors, note them down and come back. You remember I told like access to computers was not easy. You had to go to computer center, which was only open between 9 to 5, and you had to squeeze out the time between your college hours to kind of go there. And you know what happened? I went to the computer center and typed in my program. It flashed the screen at me showing blinking test saying warning, dang, dang, dang. I was really literally scared. Have you ever seen a Hollywood movie where the hero is trying to save humanity from a nuclear attack or an asteroid? The computer starts beeping, bang, bang, bang. That's how I felt. I thought I did something terribly wrong and something bad is going to happen to the computer. I looked around, made sure no one is watching me, turned off the computer, and I ran back to my hostel as fast as I could. No, I'm not joking. I'm not making it up. Okay, this is how I actually felt when I actually tried to program in front of a computer for the first time. Now you believe me, right? I mean, all of you are much better positioned than where I started. If I could become a good programmer, I'm sure all of you could. In fact, if you look at how things have changed in 2 decades, right? I mean, people have access to stuff. You want to learn something, you don't really have to struggle like people of our generation, like 2 decades ago, had to kind of struggle. So in that sense, it can have a humble beginning, but that doesn't stop you from actually starting the path to mastery. All you need is making your mind and then take the first step. Okay, you resolve your mind, you want to kind of do it. So what next? Solve interesting problems. When it's interesting, I don't mean glorious. Interesting means something that excites you. That could be as simple as writing a program to download wallpapers of your favorite actor and then change the desktop screen. Or if you love cricket, write a program to explore runs of all batsmen and maybe find who scored most number of runs in a particular year, etc. Or even a simple program to draw a nice geometric shape. These are interesting problems. So we're really not talking about interesting to someone else. It's interesting to you. Look around, find something that interests you, spend time, try to build it. Only by solving problems that are dear to you, you get motivated and get excited. So you want to go on the path to mastery, find interesting problems and solve them. I'm going to show you something interesting that I've done in my early days. This is back in the days where in our computer center, there used to be one Unix computer connected to some 20, 30 terminals, which only had text mode. We log in there, run our program, and look at output and be happy. That's all we could do with these computers. So I had this weird thing. I wanted to write a program to print a heart. How do you do it? So this is something that may look very trivial now, but it took me weeks and weeks of maybe even months of time to kind of get this right. So while I was going through books in the library, I found a magic secret. If you look at the third line of the program, the macro MC that I wrote, that's a macro to move cursor. If you print those magic numbers, the cursor would move to that location. This is something that was not known to many people, and I magically stumbled upon it and wrote this program. So what the program does is it asks for a character, star or a hash, and it puts a heart there and then moves cursor back to the top of the screen. So what I used to do was I used to run this program and then log out and then come out. So it also used to, another version of my program used to also print my name at the bottom saying that this is what done by me, and I was very proud of this. The reason I'm telling you is like, all the problems that you solve doesn't have to be very exciting. It's something that fascinates you. This really fascinated me so much when I actually built it. I'm sure you'll find your own fascinating problems. Okay, now you've started solving interesting problems. What next? So the next thing is you challenge yourself, push yourself to the limits. What I mean is, try something hard, something that you think is too hard for you to do. You may fail. That's okay. But try something, be ambitious, try something hard. Can you create a simple web framework? What about a simple programming language? Or even a database? Can you write your own Unix shell? What does it take to do a Sudoku solver? Go deep. So back in the day when, so I did my bachelor's from called NIT Bhopal. It used to be called Regional Engineering College back then. Like every government college, the labs, we used to have amazing labs, but none of the equipment used to work. So the one that you see on the right is an 8085 microprocessor. I did my bachelor's in electrical engineering, so this is one of our subjects that we had. If you see those buttons there, I don't remember how much. I think it has some 4K or 2K memory, and you can actually type in the memory location and then enter a value into that. So you basically write your program in the machine language onto this, and then maybe add two numbers or something, and then see the output. So that's what I found is really fascinating back then. I wanted to kind of program on this, and we had like 1 or 2 classes per week. And when you went to the class, went to the lab, most of the time these equipments wouldn't work. You wouldn't know whether you are doing something wrong or the equipment was faulty. Most of the time it was the latter. I struggled for a month trying to kind of get something working on this microprocessor. It didn't work. I took up a challenge. I said, enough, I'm going to actually write a simulator for this. And what I built in this on the left. You see, this is built completely in Turbo C++. I don't know if you've ever seen this, right? So everything here is actually drawn by a rectangle or lines. It's nothing, there's no framework, and it's written in C. So even if you look at the shades of buttons that you see, they're actually handcrafted. So the reason I'm saying this is these are the tools that are available back to us, and it was a great challenge to me, and I've learned enormously by doing this. Right. So now you pick your challenges. You look at what excites you, right? And so when it excites, that's something that excites you personally, right? Not because someone will think good of you or you'll get more stars on GitHub. It's not that. It's just like sheer joy of actually building it, right? Take that challenge and then build something. Next, seek inspiration. There are a lot of beautiful things around you. There are a lot of software that is amazingly beautiful. Pay attention, seek inspiration, and dive deep. Try to understand them. So I'm going to show you some inspirations that really changed me so much. You all know this is a Macintosh computer. This was back in 2014. I was working at Stand Life Sciences, a startup from Indian Institute of Science. We built a product used by researchers in the field of biology for analyzing some data generated by their experiments. All these were desktop applications. We were told by our sales team that there was a customer willing to buy our product, but they wanted to run the software on a Macintosh. None of us knew what it would look like. So the company bought this computer, and our job was to port our software onto this. I started exploring this, looking at this. Behind the scenes, actually Unix machine. We all used to run on Debian desktops back then. This looks really wonderful. This is actually Unix computer with such a beautiful UI. I started playing with it. And something really amazed me with this. Now, more than the UI, something about the internals of the Mac really amazed me. The one thing that fascinated me so much was the way you install and uninstall software. For to install Firefox, you just drag Firefox icon, then put in your applications. That's installed. You don't like Firefox, you want to uninstall it, take it and put it in trash. That's uninstalled. It was amazing to me. I mean, I've used people struggling with uninstalling software on Windows. You have to go to Windows registry and then clean up some stuff and whatnot. Even if you look at Unix, right, it wasn't good. And you install something, it'll add something all over, spoils the global namespace, put something in user local, something in user bin, something in user lib. And cleanup was a mess always. And here on Mac, I found this thing that uninstallation is so amazingly simple. I was so amazed with it and trying to spend time how it actually works. So I looked around. Every application that is on Mac was a directory with a special extension called .app. And that has a weird, nice looking structure inside. And there was a slightly file called info.plist that actually has a metadata about the application. It will have the application name, what's icon to use, and what all file extensions this can work with, and so on. I was blown away because this is a format that Apple uses in the Mac in so many different places. And that structure of this thing looked really great to me. You may look like, yeah, this sounds like a bloated XML version of JSON. You're right. But it was 2004, even before Yahoo started using JSON, right? So JSON standard was there, but not many people knew about it. Okay, so for me, this was a game changer. Okay, I thought it was so beautiful, and I started looking at it, and then started trying to play more with it, and it paid off pretty soon. I'll show you how. The next inspiration for me was the Wizard book. If you've never heard of this book, then you should check it out. It's the structure and interpretation of computer programs. This used to be a course at MIT. This talks about this introduces programming concepts using a weird language called Scheme. But I've learned so many lessons. If you ask me, like, to name me one book that changed me as a programmer, that would be this. There's elegance of minimalism, beauty of functional programming, and exhibitions of recursive data structures. You think in recursion, and problems that look really complex could actually be solved very nicely with recursion and then recursive data structures. It was amazing. I was kind of blown away by actually what I saw in this book, and I was trying to kind of get deep and trying to understand more and more and more. And something happened. So at our organization, we had to kind of develop a software for doing some object serialization. So these two things that I've learned came very handy. So I wrote an object serialization library in Java, which was inspired by info.plist and recursive structures of Scheme. Every serializable class publishes the file format in XML, modeled after the info.plist, of course. And imagine, right? I mean, so this was the time where we're trying to sell desktop software, and people create something in the application, then save something, and then when you upgrade the software in the next version, those files stop working. We want to have some robust way where you can actually serialize these objects in the system and able to recreate it back, even if the version changes. For example, let's say you have a color by. Let's say you have a scatter plot which has X and Y. You have two arrays for that. And the next version, you added a selection. It will select which points are selected. So you need to kind of keep track of all the information and also have the backward compatibility. So what we did was basically have every class publishes its own format in XML. And it specifies what are the fields it has and their types. Okay. So whatever I learned in Scheme came very handy to me, and it was really amazing how that came out to be. Okay, and if I look back, right, it was some 500 lines of code in Java that I wrote back in 15 years ago. It's still used after 15 years without hardly any changes. Okay, I would attribute this to my efforts to kind of understand the Mac, inspiration from Mac and Scheme, right? So look out. You also can look out, find what inspires you. If you're doing web programming, let's say you're doing Python web programming in Django, look at how those wonderful data structures in Django or Flask. Or if you're doing Go, try to kind of spend time understand how the concurrency works in Go. So look at things that you use every day and that looks really beautiful to you. Go deep and try to kind of understand. You may not really see a tangible benefit immediately, but it'll pay off enormously over time. The next thing is find your community. Join a user group, participate in conferences, collaborate with others, contribute to FOSS project. You can do all of this. I'll tell you, back in 2006, when I started learning Python, stumbled upon this weird thing called, there was a user group meeting called Bang Pipers happening somewhere. I don't know what user group at all was, okay. And I turned up. And what I saw, blown away. I was blown away by what I really saw. At my organization, I was the only one kind of doing stuff with Python and this weird kind of stuff. And everyone was happy with their daily work and nothing more. But when I go there, you could actually saw a room full of people who are just like you, who want to experiment with stuff, tinker with things, and talk about more interesting things that you've not heard of, etc. So this is something that we discussed back in 2006 in one of the early Bang Pipers meetings. This was a person called Tom. He used to, I think he's a French or German, I don't remember. He used to run a startup in Bangalore. He was creating a multi-language system where you can actually use Python as a core and build multiple languages on it with macros and all such. Okay, so this looks weird because Python is not something that people use these days for this kind of thing, but he was actually trying that. Okay, you can see this is one of his websites I've grabbed from the Wayback Machine. So then the second code block, he adds a new syntax to the language and trying it. Okay, now it was really amazing, right? I mean, you could talk to people like this and learn from so much from them. And there's so many things happen in a user group like this, right? And I used to kind of speak about what I know. So I used to go and then do workshops on web.py, and others would do on Plone, Django, other stuff. And people are talking about cheat shop. There are a lot of interesting things happening. And these conversations eventually led into creation of PyCon India, which I've been associated from quite long. So if you really want to kind of master, right? I mean, doing alone is not it'll take you only so far. You have to collaborate with people, find people like you, and join the user group that resonates more with you, and that's take you to the next level. And the next thing is take risks. You have to come out of comfort zone. Very often, what happens is we often get into our cozy and comfortable with our own where we are. We're doing a good job. People respect us. We're in good shape. Doing reasonably interesting work. But there'll be a time where you actually have your inner calling. You want to kind of move on. You want to do something more. But you keep ignoring it. I mean, I had gone through this. And the decisions that I took back then really changed my life. The trick is to figure out when is that calling for you and see if you want to take that kind of risk. This was early days when I started learning Python. And it blew away what I could do in Java in a week, I used to kind of do in Python in a day. And the coding at work used to be very boring because I knew what I want to do, what I need to do, but it's going to take me so long to do in verbose language. It was also the early days of Y Combinator and Reddit. I've read an article from Paul Graham called The Via Web, where he talks about how he built an e-commerce software running entirely on web, customizable by the customers. And where he talks about the potential of web, how it can reach millions of people, and you can deploy software without even they knowing it. This was like magic to me because we were working on it, building desktop softwares. You have to do an upgrade to the next version. You have to ship a software and then be careful, run all the tests, then ship it. And then out of this 20 customers, one of them would actually have a weird operating system and that would actually crash there. And you have to spend time on calls, troubleshooting it and all that. And here, this is something like a magic to me. And I wanted to learn more about web and figure out what this web is. So I started, I wanted to learn web. And figuring, I don't know how to learn web. I don't even know where to start. Since I was comfortable with Python, I started looking around how do people do this thing in Python. There's something called Django back then. I went through the tutorials. I could build exactly what was there in the tutorial. But if anything different I need to do, I couldn't do it. Because I couldn't understand what's going on behind the scenes. There was too much of magic. Really, I mean, Django has too much of magic back then. May not be so much now, but it was, and it was quite frustrating. Okay, I was sitting around, spending a couple of days, going through tutorial, kind of going exactly doing all the steps. I could get what they're saying, but when I want to do something slightly different, I want to add a new field in the database or do something else, things would break, and I don't know how to fix it. It was really frustrating. One day, Aaron Swartz, who was co-founder of Infogami and Reddit back then, released a software called web.py, and he wrote Reddit using web.py. Reddit was written in Common Lisp back then in the first version. And I saw it. It was a breath of fresh air. The whole web framework was a single file. I could read and understand actually what's inside. And building application was simple. I was blown away. I started learning WebPy, started building toy projects using it. I wanted to try something more ambitious. So I started building a clone of Infogami, which was the startup of Aaron Swartz. I was trying to see if it's possible for me to do. There's so many hard things, so many things that I don't understand, but I keep on trying stuff. And while this is happening, I felt I had enough of my job. I mean, I didn't want to kind of continue that. I don't know what to do next, but I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So I resigned at my job, not really worrying about what I'll be doing next, not worrying about what will be my next job. Quit my job, started learning Python, web, and other stuff. Within a month, I saw an email from Aaron Swartz in the WebPy mailing list that he's looking for a WebPy programmer. I applied immediately. He asked me to show some code that I've written. I've showed him my Infogami clone. He said, "That looks good. Would you be interested to work with me to build the next version of Infogami?" That's how it started. Had I not taken that risk, I had this calling, right? I want to do something different. I was not happy with what I've been doing for so long. If I had not taken that risk and quit my job, I wouldn't have been where I am, right? I started working with Aaron Swartz and WebPy. I started contributing to it, and then rewrote a lot of parts of WebPy myself, and then eventually became co-author of WebPy. And then the work on Infogami led to a project called Open Library at the Internet Archive, which was based on Infogami. And I spent best part of my career working with the amazing people at the Internet Archive. Now, this is something that all of you have to kind of keep in mind, right? I mean, as you kind of grow, as you kind of move along your path towards mastery, whatever kind of fascinated you or found interesting may not fascinates you anymore. You may want to do some things more. So you have to figure out when it's calling and then kind of move on. But there is something that I want to warn all of you against. Beware of pitfalls. Actually, watch out for yourself. I see a lot of people these days. So one thing, the two things that actually we should be really careful about, right? I mean, all of us need money and recognition, okay? But that should be a motivation for our actions. The reason why we're doing this is we want to go along the path of mastery. So make sure that money and fame doesn't come on your way. So for example, people want to kind of recognition, they want to kind of contribute an open source project. Fine, it's a good thing to contribute open source project, but the goal is not to kind of contribute as many open source projects as possible. People go and actually start fixing typos in all projects. I'm not saying that fixing typo is a bad thing. It's a very good contribution, okay? But the motivation why you do that, right, is not to kind of show off to your friends that I have contributed to so many projects or I have so many stars in my GitHub projects. These are kind of things that you should be very careful about. And a lot of things that I kind of sometimes worry me, right? I mean, Google, of course, is a wonderful thing, okay? I mean, it actually gives opportunity for young people to kind of work with the open source projects and then get amazing mentors and all that, okay? But the point is that what is the intention to kind of do some rough code, right? And people want to do some rough code because that sounds nice on the resume. Now that's where you fall off the path to mastery, right? I mean, your intentions are not to kind of get better at your craft, but you actually want to show off or get a better job. I think uh, getting a better job, money, recognition should be the side effects of actually you getting better at your craft, not the other way around. And similarly, competitive coding. Okay, yeah, it's good to challenge yourself. Okay, but your goal shouldn't be to kind of get better at competitive coding. Okay, that's not a goal, right? So I was speaking to a nephew of mine recently, and uh, he said he's thinking of learning C++ this year. I said, what? C++? Are you crazy? Why do you want to learn C++? He said you want to do competitive coding, and the program has to run fast. So you want to learn C++. Come on. I mean, see, your passion should drive what you learn, right? I mean, not competitive coding, or I'm not saying competitive coding is bad, okay, but I mean, you could, I mean, you know, when you're doing it for yourself, or when you're kind of doing it for the greed of actually getting better at it, or actually getting a better rank, right? When I say the craft and the mastery of it, right, it's not really about comparing with someone. It's basically getting better yourself, getting better than what you were a month ago, a week ago, right? That's what it is. Okay. Even FOSS contributions. A lot of people try to contribute to FOSS, thinking that that'll actually add weight to their resume. No, I mean that may add weight to your resume, but that should be the motivation for doing it. Okay. So please watch out for that. Okay. These are the pitfalls that should we be aware of. Okay. Now, it's very easy to fall in this trap, and my sincere advice is to kind of keep a watch on yourself and make sure that you know it when you're actually doing it for recognition, or when you're actually doing it because you naturally feel that that's the right thing for you to do at that point. And next thing is, the path to mastery is never ending. Then you go back, right? Go to first step one, start finding interesting projects, challenge yourself, and repeat. So path to, let me summarize. The path to mastery, you take the first step, make your mind, take the first step, solve interesting problems. Interesting just means like interesting to you, not to anyone else. Doesn't have to be glorious, doesn't have to be very big. Challenge yourself, try to do things that you find hard to do. That will basically make you better at the craft. Seek inspiration. Look at things that inspire you. Look at things that you find really beautiful, and try to dive deep and try to understand. Find your community. I mean, I can't stress enough how much the Python community in India helped me to grow. The Bank Pipers, PyCon India, it's a wonderful community. I mean, find your community. I'm sure there are wonderful communities for every language and programming language. There is a wonderful Ruby community. There is the JavaScript community, and there's even very niche communities. There's a community for creative coding, and there's amazing front-end community and DevOps. I mean, you name it, right? I mean, there's so many wonderful communities out there. You can join them and then find people who share similar passions like you, and grow together. And when it's time, be ready to take the risks. And most importantly, beware of your pitfalls. Don't do things because that'll add a weight to your resume. Getting a better job and things, these should be side effects of your craft. Your work should speak for yourself. Don't crave to kind of show off what you're trying to do. And go back, rinse and repeat. Thank you. That's all. And I think now I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Anand. That was a wonderful session. So we'll go ahead towards the question and answer session. So we have a question actually. So you have been a FOSS developer for a long time now. What is the most stark difference you have seen in the FOSS community or dev community in the last 5 years and the 10 years? Yeah. Difference.
Yeah. So back in the days, FOSS was not a. It was a very specialized thing, right? Not very few people kind of used to kind of do, right? I mean, even like people not many people even knew Linux, right? Very small, a very small subset of people can even work on Linux. Now everyone actually has an Android phone which runs Linux, right? And also, so in a sense, like the awareness of FOSS is kind of grown up. I mean, every organization now uses FOSS. Okay, so back in like a decade or two ago, right? Only startups, etc., actually use FOSS. I'm not talking about contributing to FOSS. I'm actually talking about using FOSS, right? So when I used to work, like people having Linux computers for all developers was something that not many companies would actually have. Okay, everyone used to have Windows computers. Okay, and but I think we've come quite a long way on the journey to FOSS. And also, if you look at right version control system, so back in the day it was like CVS and Bugzilla. Now we have Git, which is much better, and you can completely work offline. So these kind of tools kind of change the way how you can contribute. The barrier to entry or barrier to contribute something has come down significantly. Things like GitHub, GitLab, and you can just send a pull request and they can review. This is really amazing, right? I mean, these things these tools weren't there. So back in the day, you had to send a patch and then send it to someone to kind of review it. They had to take the patch, an email, and then apply. So it was kind of hard. And so I have gone through my life through like starting with CVS, starting with actually when I was in college, like managing things as with timestamp tarball of files to CVS to SVN to Mercurial Bazaar and to get right. I mean, so I would say like the tooling has been amazing now. It wasn't as good back then, so that reduces the barrier to kind of contribute. That's what I would think. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, I think we have got the answer. Another question. Another question regarding the pitfalls. Most people want to actually get Google jobs. Yeah. That is what attracts them to tech. So at what point do people decide to be FOSS dev, or is FOSS for like artists only?
Yeah. So the thing is now it's a personal choice that you need to make, right? Okay. For me, I want to have the joy of doing it. Okay, and that's my motivation, and I want to have that motivation alive. Okay. Now, if that's not your cup of tea, okay, right? See, I'm not saying that one is better than other. Okay, so for some people, programming is not they're not really excited about. They probably want to become a manager or an engineering manager, or want to kind of actually build stuff, but not really care so much about the craft of programming. That's perfectly fine. Okay, but you are something you want to kind of get better at the craft, then this is what I would recommend. Okay, right? And also, there's a lot of glory about working at Google and all, right? I mean, so let me kind of ask a controversial, like, why is it so great to work at Google, right? That's because everyone respects that, so look up on you that you work at Google. Okay, I'm sure like there are many companies which does as interesting work as Google, if not more, right? So, so that's the thing that you need to keep in mind. Okay, so. So the motivation should be that you have to find an interesting place where you can actually learn more and have an amazing work. Okay, so that and with your limited knowledge, you think that's Google. Okay, that you actually have many more things, right? I mean, for example, I've worked at Internet Archive for almost 8 years. Internet Archive is this little non-profit digital library in the US, which has been archiving the World Wide Web from 1995. That is the only organization that has an archive of the World Wide Web. You can actually go back and actually see how any website that you want was there like a couple of years ago. Okay, so when I was working at the Internet Archive was actually so I was building the open library at the Internet Archive, and when that's happening, Google actually started a book scanning project with some universities. Okay, so these two was going in parallel. Okay.
Okay.
Now the book scanning project, they felt it's not commercially viable and they killed it. Okay, and open library continues to live. Okay, so now if you ask me, like if you take that time, right, into Archive on Google, if I had a job at actually working as an engineer on the Google Books project or working at Internet Archive, I would say Internet Archive would be more fulfilling, right? Because that's a project that's going to be long lived than what Google Books is. Okay, in that sense, you have to figure out what really you're looking for. Okay, I know. I mean, when you say Google, you don't really mean it's Google. Okay, you want to kind of have something that's really exciting. Okay, so be a little more broad and ask this question, right? Why you want really job at Google? Okay, so that's what I would like to kind of put it, right? I mean, there are more companies, more organizations doing more interesting things than Google. Okay, so watch out for that, and then spend more time to figure that out.
Yeah. Another question. What's your personal take on FOSS United Foundation? So that is trying to, onboard private industry into supporting FOSS in India.
Yeah, I think Vishal can actually answer this question, right? I think in the starting note, right? You mentioned like the FOSS developers in India are quite less compared to. I don't have the numbers. I think you can give that numbers. That would answer that.
Yeah. No, we are actually looking for your personal take. What like.
Yeah. So I would say, like, see, someone has to. So there are a lot of things that are hard for individuals to do. When you join hands together, there are a lot of things, are wonderful things you can do. Okay. Now, I think I really enjoy, I like FOSS United. I'm a big fan of Frappe and even Zerodha for that matter, right? I mean, so they're trying to kind of have this movement. Okay. And see, I mean, I've gone through that kind of community initiatives myself, and then see what was possible. Like, I'll tell you a story, like what happened with the Python India. Okay, so when we were doing PyCon India back, I think in the initial days of PyCon India, we saw like a lot of students want to learn Python. Okay, and not all of them can come to the conference, because conference you cater to maybe like 500,000 people. But there's so many engineering colleges all around, they can't really travel to Bangalore and attend. Okay, and even if they can, they may not be able to understand because they're very new to Python. So we thought, can we actually go and teach Python to them? No, it's hard. I tried myself as an individual. I want to kind of approach college and say, I want to do Python training. They'll basically look at you with the doubt and say, why do you want to do that? What are you gaining out of that kind of stuff? So that becomes very hard to become, even start conversation. So I've gone through this, and then I thought maybe a good idea if I actually create a forum where actually these things can actually happen. So along with PyCon India, we the PyCon India volunteers started this program called Python Month, where we actually spend 1 month try to do Python workshops around India. So we create a Google form. Anyone is an experienced Python programmer can sign up to go and do a Python workshop. And any college want to do Python workshop, or a student want to run a workshop in their college, they can sign up. We'll mix and match, and then make the workshop happen. And then in a month of time, we actually made, I think, did about 100 workshops. Okay. Wow. I mean, it was so overwhelming, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who are actually taking calls and actually mixing and matching, and then people going and actually doing the trainings. Sometimes there was, we have to make sure that the food is arranged for the trainer for lunch and all of that. Okay. And we continued that and called it Python Express, and then ran it for a year or two again. Okay. So as build some software to kind of run these events on an ongoing basis. So, right, I mean, if you look at the number of people who actually introduced to Python just by doing that community effort, that's something not possible by a single person. Okay. Now, when you look at FOSS United, right, I kind of see that kind of potential. Okay, you can reach FOSS to so many people just by the sheer idea of that it's a community and it's driven by people, and then people like me who are not part of FOSS United but want to kind of join you for a small time and then contribute to something and then go back. And I think it's I'm really excited about the FOSS United forum, and I hope something really wonderful would come out of it in coming years.
Cool. Thanks. So you mentioned about there's some echo. Yeah. So you mentioned about people who want to start, they can go and join groups like Bank Pipers, as you started. So there are many colleges in India right now, like let's say a few colleges in Bihar. So people don't have community groups there. So how they should start actually? So there is a friend of mine who is actually asking me since last 2 years. There is nothing like here in Kochi or Bangalore. So what I should do, how I should start contributing and working.
Yeah. Okay. So let me clarify. Okay. I didn't start Bank Papers. Bank Papers started by a person called Anand Pillai. Okay. I just happened to kind of join that, and then by the time I joined, it was already a wonderful group of people already discussing Python. Okay, so people get confused about our names. Don't worry. Okay, the second thing is, I think Kochi has wonderful hacker community already. Okay, I don't know if there is a. I think there's even Kochi Pi. I don't remember. I mean, you can
Kochi
just
Python is there. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm talking about people like colleges which are in, not big cities like Bangalore or Kochi. I mean,
So okay, so I'll tell you interesting stuff. So there is this one person Python community called Kushal Das. He used to run IRC. Okay, so this is Durgapur. It's called DPGL. I don't remember. Durgapur. Yeah, DGP lag, right? I mean, so when people can actually do things on people learn programming on IRC, right? I mean, why not now, right? I mean, all you need to do is kind of have a critical mass of people who are like 3-4 people who are interested, okay, and start hacking together, and then they can actually ask someone to kind of say, spend half an hour doing a session with them, right? I'm sure like people in the community would be happy to kind of do that, okay, and I hope FOSS United can be forum to kind of enable those kind of things going forward.
Yep. Thanks. So let me check any more questions. Okay, we have 2 more questions. So, as you have been a trainer, how do we bring out a change in mindset for young developers to motivate them to pursue mastery instead of focusing on things like competitive programming, etc.?
It's hard. So forget about mastery, right? I mean, so when I go and do trainings, right? I mean, so I'm very careful about starting with what names you choose for your variables, your functions. Okay. Now it may sound silly, okay, but I feel it's very, very important thing. In fact, I gave a talk at one of the conferences about writing beautiful code. So the first thing is you name your variables correct, okay, and there are times where I actually spent I still remember like spending 2 days figuring out what name I should actually call this class, because the name kind of lets you kind of explain things easily and all that, okay. So when I do training, the first thing that I have to kind of struggle to kind of explain people is why it's important to name your variables correctly. Okay? When you're writing a program, right, you spend time. So even that itself is hard. You're talking about asking people not to do complicated coding, but actually focus on mastery. I don't know. I don't have an answer really. Okay, I find it's really sad because I see like there's so many wonderful resources available these days now. Okay, and you can actually learn so many wonderful things. People are going and actually learning things and want to learn C++ and want to kind of do competitive coding. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get into competitive coding, right? I mean, that's not the real world. Okay, that's a very hypothetical place. You're sitting in a small room and then closing yourself and feel that I'm better than everyone else. That's not the real world. Okay, when you write software, right? I mean, that's not the real beauty, I would say. I'm sure like, there's beauty in writing algorithms also. What I'm saying is, can you write a software that actually lives for couple of decades? What does it take to kind of do it, right? I mean, what kind of discipline that you need to have develop to kind of write software that people would like, people want to use? What's the developer experience, right? When you write a library, what kind of things that needs to go along with it to kind of make people like what you're building? And these are very hard things, right? This is not uh, you have to write documentation, and you have to make sure the function takes right kind of arguments, and then make sure that you have the consistency. There are a lot of things that you need to kind of understand to kind of do it, okay. And frankly, like I don't have an answer like how to motivate these people. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So I think you are young and just starting out. Maybe it is hard to know your passion. Participating in FOSS or coding competition may actually help someone discover what excites them. So I think this is a suggestion.
Yeah. So true. Okay. So what I'm saying is now, if your goal is to actually see if that excites you, I don't have any issue with that. Okay. I'm not saying that competitive coding is bad. Okay. In fact, so for many years, I used to kind of go and attempt the ICFP programming contest. It's a programming contest run along with functional programming. Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay, I'm audible. Okay. So it's done with an functional programming conference. Okay. this used to be so challenging problems that are hardly even able to kind of get a working solution. Okay. Now, if you really want to challenge yourself and actually do it, do something like that. Okay. Now, competitive coding, I'll tell you, my reservation for competitive coding is this, right? You do competitive coding because you want to get a better rank that you can put on your resume. Okay. That's so the motivation for actually doing that is you can have something that on your resume. Okay. Not really kind of get better at craft. So that's the problem. Okay. But there's so many different ways to kind of get better at craft. Okay. And competitive coding could be one of them. I don't have any issues. I mean, you can try that. Okay. But there are so many problems. For example, there's Euler problems. You can solve all of them. There are if you look at many languages, there are 99 problems in Haskell, 99 problems in Scheme, 99 problems in Prolog. I mean, there are a lot of fascinating problems which are out there you can try out. Okay, it need not be competitive coding. So that's so think about how to build software for the long term, right? And that would be long-lasting software. That would be an interesting metric to think about.
Yep. So more, I meet people who say they don't know what excites them yet. All they know is they do X because it will get them a better job. What's your advice on the path to take discovering their passion?
Yeah, so that's why I said try solve interesting problems, right? I mean, so in every day, like we kind of look at things that excites us. Okay, for example, when I was starting my programming, right, I don't know why what to do. Okay, so I used to kind of think about a problem, spend a week implementing it, and I don't know what to do. Okay, spend a week more kind of thinking about what else can I do. Okay, etc. And I had a friend who was fascinated about physics. He used to come and ask me, "Can you draw this chart?" Okay, used to come with sin x with cos x or sin of exponential something, and we didn't had Python or SciPy or MATLAB, any of those kind of things, right? All we had was Turbo C. So I used to write a program to kind of draw it, and then he used to get fascinated by the shape of the graph itself, and that used to give me kicks. Okay, now the reason I'm saying it is like you don't really have to seek these interesting problems elsewhere. Okay, everything that you're doing every day. Okay, right? For example, your job involves sending a mail to 10 people. Can you automate it? Automate your simple day-to-day stuff, or thing that you do. Can you do it differently? Can you do it more efficiently, etc. These kind of small things, I think, would let you figure out what you kind of likes more, and then you continue doing more of that. Okay.
Yep. Sounds good.
I think, let me add one more thing, right? I mean,
Sure.
In yesterday's talk, someone asked, how do you, a similar question was asked, and the answer was like, how do you know which ice cream flavor do you like, right? You try out things. That's all.
Yeah. Great analogy. So I think we are done with questions. Thank you. Okay, we have got one more. Writing software is drudgery for most times. How do you keep yourself going?
So you have a fascinating problem right there, right? Make it exciting. Like why it doesn't have to be drudgery, right? I mean, you can make it exciting. Okay. So figure out why it is actually boring to kind of do it. Okay. Maybe you're not using the right tool. Okay. Or maybe the tool is not matching your expectations. Maybe you have to kind of go and then use something better. Okay. So I think that itself, solving that problem itself would be kind of quite fascinating.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we are done with questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you, Anand. Here. Thank you, Anand, for joining us, and thank you everybody who are listening to us. Thanks. So hopefully we'll have the hack started again after this talk. So thank you, Anand.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice hackathon.
Yeah.